Mike came to the playground late at night. The sun had already set behind our house, darkness fell in the yard. All around was quiet, only somewhere in the distance a truck rumbled and a dog barked. The air smelled like grass cuttings. A patch of trampled lawn, a homemade gate with a leaky net and a couple of benches instead of stands. It didn't look too much like the football stadiums Mike saw on TV, but it was still impressive. There was some kind of magic here, it was drawn near. When the game began, the rest of the world seemed to cease to exist. All the troubles disappeared from the head, the quarrels of the parents, the school were forgotten. Even the sores passed. Mike loved this place, only he was rarely taken to the game. He threw an old darn ball onto the lawn, moved with it to the goal, beating invisible opponents, and with all the strength he threw it under the crossbar. The net fluttered. Mike jumped up, waved his hands in celebration of the scored goal, but immediately looked around. Doesn't anyone see? Local boys laughed at him anyway, came up with offensive nicknames and could take on the team only if there was no one to put on the gate. And with each missed goal, Michael's nicknames were added. But now no one was watching him. The windows in the houses were slowly extinguished, and the entrance doors were slamming less and less. That is why Michael loved this time. There are practically no people on the street, everyone is sitting in their apartments and getting ready for bed. And the playground belongs only to him, and no one will drive him out of here. He pounded about 50 heads when he heard the dog again. Now she was barking much closer, somewhere behind the house. And not just barking, but tore at his throat, as if it were completely brutal. Michael even imagined a bared mouth, sharp teeth, drooling saliva on the ground. He shivered. He did not want to stumble upon a mad dog. But I didn't even want to go home and get hit in the neck by the folder just for the fact that he, Michael, was once born. I didn't want to look at my mother's tears, at her bruises. I didn't want to see how. The barking stopped abruptly, the dog screeched, and in the next instant, the sound of breaking bones echoed across the yard. Michael thought his own bones were crunching, it was so loud. Loud and eerie. He picked up the ball and began to turn his head around, peering into the darkness. Half of the lamps at the entrances were no longer lit. The wind drove small debris along the asphalt. Birds were busy in a feeder arranged on a birch. And at the corner of the house stood a tall man and looked directly at Michael. Legs buckled. In the silence that followed, Michael heard only the pounding of his own heart. He suddenly realized that here, in the cone of lantern light on the landing, he could not be overlooked. Michael took a step back mechanically, and the stranger did the same. It's like a wrong, slowed down reflection. Glass shattered on one of the upper floors. There was a scream and Michael shuddered. Far, far away, on the highway, a siren howled and immediately died down. Something was happening. Another one appeared next to the stranger. He, too, looked at Michael and strangely stretched out his arms in front of him, as if squeezing air. Or was holding an invisible ball. Michael's throat went dry. Sweat beaded on his forehead. He rushed towards his entrance, but noticed dark silhouettes on the landing. They seemed to be rooted in the ground. Mannequins hiding outside the lantern light. Waiting.
No. No.
Hearing a voice behind him, Michael screamed. The voice was distorted, not real, as if the person had not yet learned how to use it. Michael turned and saw Jim, a boy a year older, with whom he sometimes played here. He was one of the few who treated him normally.
Jim, what are you doing?
Jim stood a few steps from the football field, turned his head in different directions and did not dare to enter the spot of light. Gently stretched out his leg out of the darkness and immediately jerked it back. And then I tried again.
Jim? Help.
Michael was out of breath. The wind ruffled his uncut bangs, blew in with coolness, but brought with it terrible smells. The smells of fresh blood, rotten meat and a burning dump. Smells of the new Jim. The creature jerked forward, fell to the ground, roared, and crawled back into the darkness. She quickly got to her feet and began to approach the light in small steps. Michael saw a smile on the non-Jim's face, and a wave of goosebumps rose up his spine.
Leave me alone. Leave alone.
Michael threw a ball at him, then lifted a rock from the ground and threw the creature right in the head. It staggered, retreated a couple of meters and froze in place. And then clumsily copied Michael's movement. Crouched down and threw a non-existent stone at him. Once again. And further. Like repeating the weirdest exercise in gym class.
Leave me alone.
Michael no longer held back his tears. Screams and strange, irregular voices were heard from the darkness that covered the area. Alarms went off. Moving away from the creature, Michael pressed his back against the lantern. Buried in a saving light. Mosquitoes buzzed right under the lamp, a fly fluttered in the cobweb. Shadows rose around the patch of football field. What was pretending to be Jim groped a real stone on the ground and threw it towards Michael with incredible force. A lamppost clinked. The creature stared ahead of it for a few seconds, and then lifted its head higher. To a glass ball that gives birth to electric light. And Michael went cold. The shadows moved. A column of black smoke rose from behind the houses. Michael slumped to the ground, sobbing, and covered his head with his hands. The creature managed to break the lantern on the third attempt. Once, in the same yard, children were playing hide and seek. When they chose the driver, everyone else ran to hide. One girl did not know where to hide, but suddenly she saw a boy waving to her here. The girl thought that the boy must have found a good place to hide, and she ran after him. The boy ran ahead, showing the way. First they ran into a narrow passage between two old brick walls. The girl suddenly thought that she had never seen anything like it in her yard. Then they ran into some old building and ran down a long staircase to a dark basement. The basement was completely dark and water was dripping from above. But even then the boy did not stop and ran on. And although it was completely dark, the girl could see him very well. She wanted to catch up with him and say that there was no need to run further, otherwise no one would ever find them. But no matter how fast she ran, she still could not catch up with the boy. The girl got tired and stopped. And immediately the boy running ahead disappeared. "Hey!" shouted the girl, "stop!" She suddenly felt scared. She looked around, but saw nothing, as it was completely dark. She began to call the boy again, but no one responded. Then the girl turned and walked back. She walked for a long time, but did not get any brighter. And the stairs they went down here were not there. But then the girl saw that something was shining ahead. She was delighted and walked faster forward. She soon realized it was glowing. It was just a pale spot of light on the floor, as if the moon was shining through the round window. But there was no window and no moon. But there was a boy here. The one that caused the girl to come here. "Let's play," the boy said. He was all black, darker than the surrounding darkness, so the girl could see him very well. "Who are you?" the girl asked fearfully. The boy didn't answer. "I want to go home," said the girl and cried, "Please take me back." The boy shook his head. "You can't go there anymore," he said. "They will be afraid and scream. And nobody wants to play with you." "Why?" The girl was surprised. The boy did not answer again and continued, "But now there are two of us and we can play here. It is always dark here and you can easily hide. And then we will invite other children and it will become even more fun to play." "I don't want to play," the girl cried. "I want to go home." "We'll go there," the boy promised, "and you can look out the window of your house when everyone is asleep. When they can't see. And even if they suddenly wake up, they will see only darkness." And then the girl looked at her hands and realized that she had become as black as a boy. "Don't be afraid," the boy told her, "now they will all be afraid of you." One high school student was bored in class and looked out the window. On the grass he saw a photograph thrown by someone. He went out into the courtyard and picked up a picture. It turned out to be a very beautiful girl. She was wearing a dress, red shoes, and she was showing 2 fingers. The guy began to ask everyone if they had seen this girl. But nobody knew her. In the evening, he put a photo near the bed, and at night he was awakened by a soft sound, as if someone was scratching at the glass. In the darkness outside the window came a woman's laugh. The kid left the house and started looking for the source of the voice. He quickly left, and the guy did not notice how, hurrying after him, he ran out onto the roadway. He was hit by a car. The driver jumped out of the car and tried to save the hit man, but it was too late. And then the man noticed a photograph of a beautiful girl on the ground. She was wearing a dress, red shoes, and she was showing 3 fingers. One winter, 4 students from a mountaineering club got lost in the mountains and were caught in a blizzard. They managed to get out to an abandoned and empty house. There was nothing in it to keep warm, and the guys realized that they would freeze if they fell asleep in this place. One of them suggested this. Everyone stands in the corner of the room. First, one runs to the other, pushes him, he runs to the third, etc. So they will not fall asleep, and the movement will warm them. Until the morning they ran along the walls, and in the morning they were found by rescuers. When the students later talked about their salvation, someone asked, if there is one person in each corner, then when the 4th reaches the corner, no one should be there. Why didn't you stop then? The 4 looked at each other in horror. No, they never stopped. Once upon a time there was a girl. She lived with her dad and little brother. She didn't have a mom because her mom died. The girl missed her mother very much. When Dad left for work, he warned the girl, do not open the door to anyone, especially a person with a black face. And then one day, when Dad was at work, there was a knock on the door. The girl did not listen to her dad and opened the door. A man with a blue face stood in the doorway. And he said, "Girl, I can get your mom back, but for that you have to give me your brother." The girl refused and closed the door. The next day, a man with a red face came to the girl. "Girl, I can get your mom back, but for that I'll take your dad." The girl refused and closed the door. When Dad returned from work, the girl told him that a man with a blue face came, and then a man with a red face. Dad was very angry and told the girl never to open the door to anyone again. But the next day, when Dad left, there was another knock on the door. The girl looked through the peephole on the door and saw a man with a black face. "Girl," a man with a black face said from behind the door, "I can get your mom back, but I'm not taking your brother or dad." The girl was delighted and opened the door. A black-faced man walked in and said, "But I'll take you." When Dad returned home, He saw an open door and a large black spot on the floor. And the girl and the brother were not there. A man with a black face deceived the girl and took her brother with her. The girl's dad took out kerosene, poured it on a black spot and set it on fire. The spot immediately burst into black flame and screams were heard. When the whole house burned down, the girl's dad bought a train ticket and left for another city forever. Somehow a married couple decided to go to the cinema and leave the children with a babysitter. They put the children to bed, so the young woman just had to stay at home just in case. Soon the girl became bored and decided to watch TV. She called her parents and asked their permission to turn on the TV. They, of course, agreed, but she had one more request. She asked if it was possible to close something with the statue of an angel outside the window, and because it made her nervous. For a second the phone went quiet, and then the father, who was talking to the girl, said, "Take the children and run out of the house. We will call the police. We do not have a statue of an angel." The police found everyone who remained at home dead. The angel statue was never found.